All right. Hey guys. This note set takes us into my absolute favorite unit of study. So everything that we have done so far has pretty much built up to our understanding the genetics unit. So you're not discarding your knowledge from before. You are using it to help you understand what genetics and heredity are. Right. This guy, Gregor Mendel, was an Austrian monk who used pea plants to learn about genetics. He is known as the father of genetics. And he came up with these three laws of inheritance: the law of dominance, the law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment. The law of dominance that states that some alleles are dominant, and if they're dominant, they're always going to be expressed if they're present, right? So a dominant allele is always going to be expressed. Now you have to have two copies of each gene to determine a trait, and we'll define those vocabulary. So when you have a dominant allele, you don't have to have two same dominant allele. You could just have one, and you're going to express that dominant trait. Recessive, it's an allele that will only be expressed, a trait that will only be expressed if you have two of those alleles. All right. So if brown hair is dominant over blonde hair, and letter B represents lowercase b represents blonde hair, then you have to have two lowercase b alleles in order to get blonde hair, right? So let's practice what that means in theory. So if uh if P is purple, uppercase P is purple, and we'll talk about those in a second here, and lowercase p gives you white, then uppercase, two uppercase p's are going to give you purple because that's a dominant. Uppercase and a lowercase, if you can imagine, if you're following, will also give you purple, and two lower cases are going to give you, let me hear you say it. We're gonna give you white. All right. So, all right. So to determine the possible genotypes um, of the phenotypes given below. Oops. So if someone is tall, what are the ways, excuse me, what must their genotype be? And you guys should be starting to pick up, there's a lot of vocabulary in here. Genotype is the actual sequence of the letters on your genes. So if you're tall, you could be uppercase T, or you could be uppercase T, lowercase t. But if you're short, there's only one possibility for that, and it's two lowercase t's. All right, so moving on. All right, so the law of segregation. So that was the law of dominance. Some are dominant, some are recessive. A dominant allele is always going to be expressed if it's present. The law of segregation, when chromosomes separate in meiosis, each gamete or egg or sperm will only receive one chromosome from each pair. So remember, you have a set of genes from mom and a set from dad. And when chromosomes segregate, you are only going to get one piece of each, all right, from each parent. The law of independent assortment. This is saying that you getting one trait from mom doesn't affect you getting another trait from mom. All right, so the traits assort independently, and one doesn't affect the next. All right, I'm gonna go back to this one a little bit. So one of the things I want you to notice is that, so this is metaphase 1 and it lines up, but there is nothing to say that the red R couldn't be on this side and the purple R on that side. And so you could end up with a red R, right? You could have ended up with a red R and a purple Y, but the point of it is you must end up with one R and one Y, okay? All right. Nature versus nurture. So genes determine our physical traits. It always comes down to what is on your genes. But the environment can definitely also play a role in how a trait is expressed. So, for example, height and weight, obviously, they're first and foremost determined by your genes, but your environment can play a very big role. So, if you have genes to be very tall, but your nutrition is poor or whatever, then you probably won't grow as tall as you should, right? Weight is the same thing. You could be from a family that's big boned, right? But if you're a person that work out every day, then chances are you won't follow the typical body type of your family. Um, Fur color is another thing in some animals. So your genes obviously determine what color your fur is. But for example, the Arctic fox, it has a white coat in winter for survival reasons, but a brown coat in summer for survival reasons. So the environment can shape how the genes are expressed. But first and foremost, it starts at the genes. All right. The same thing with cancer. Some people are predisposed, right, to getting cancer, but their lifestyle choices can help them in a lot of ways. All right, some more vocabulary. Alleles. An allele is the letter that is assigned to the gene, right? Uppercase means it's dominant, lowercase means it's recessive. Each individual has two alleles from one parent. So if you're homozygous, you have two of the same alleles. If you're heterozygous, you have two different. Look at the picture, very, very good picture here. Um, Genotype versus phenotype. So a lot of these are vocabulary that you hear me use, and it's very important that we learn these vocabulary. All right, so genotype is the actual combination of the genes, so the letters your that are on your gene. And a phenotype is a physical appearance of the traits. For example, violet color, flower color, right? So here is a genotype, right? The letters, here is the phenotype, the actual color. So moving forward, I'm just going to throw these vocab and I'm going to say, hey, give me the genotype, and I expect you to give me the right thing. Give me the phenotype, tell me the right thing. A Punnett square. A Punnett square is a tool that is used to predict the probability of inheriting traits from parents, right? So this, let's say this is mom and this is dad. When mom and dad go through meiosis to make gametes, right? One gamete is gonna have this, one gamete is gonna have that, all right? Segregation and independent assortment. So you fill out the Punnett square. So you put the parents on the side and you put the offspring in the middle, right? So this R, if you're following the arrow, see if I could get it. Can I write? No. So this R comes here, right? It also goes there. This R goes there, it also goes there. And so that's how you fill out the boxes. So in this box, you have this R from up top and this one from across. I personally prefer when you put the uppercase first and the lowercase second for consistency, and it just looks better. So these are the parents, and you use the parents to create offspring. And from this, you can tell the probability of an offspring inheriting a trait, right? So let's say this was for, I don't know, red color, where big R gives you red and little r gives you white. You would now know that there's a 75% chance, because it's 3 out of 4 chances, that this child will get a big R allele and so show a red flower color. Right? And then there's a 1 in 4 chance that you could have a child that inherits 2 little R's and end up having white flower color. All right, so that is how a Punnett square is used to predict the probability of getting a particular trait. All right, here's some Punnett square jargon or genetic jargon. So if you say P, that's representing the parental generation. F1 is the first generation, and then F2 is the second generation. And then there are phenotypic ratios that are typical, and I'm not gonna tell you what they are. I want us to kind of come up on that observation for ourselves. Um, so with the Punnett squares, we often list the phenotypic and genotypic ratios. All right. So, for example, if you were to make these babies, you would say that the genotypic ratio is 1 to 1 because you have one uppercase P, two uppercase P, lowercase p, and one lowercase p. So that's the genotypic ratio. The phenotypic ratio, however, is a little bit different because you're just looking at the colors, right? So the phenotypic ratio in this case would be 3 purples to 1 white, right? All right, in cabbage butterflies, we're gonna do these practice in class when we go live, when we meet. So you can look at that and you could start to come up with an answer for yourself. Here's some more practice. We've got in some plants, red flowers are dominant, 2 white flowers. 2 plants are crossed and they have the probability of 3 to 1. Draw the Punnett square. So what parents would give you the phenotypic ratio of 3 to 1? Hint, hint. We kind of did that one before. All right. So that's it, guys. And we will go over this note set in class.